Another week down and more accolades for the Hurricanes as the captain himself became the second star of the week for the league. And speaking of the league, where are the Carolina Hurricanes at right now when it comes to the standings?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun show for you guys on a Tuesday edition as we get to talk about Jordan Staal and how he was the second star of the week last week for your Carolina Hurricanes within the NHL. Also going to do some standings updates because, we got a little bit of a break with the 2 days off. So why not, catch up and see where the Hurricanes are at around the league as of January 13th going into the 14th. And do you think there could be some roster updates when it comes to the team? Are we going to be seeing potential trades in certain positions, or how's that going to play out? Well, before we jump into all of that today, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com. So like I said, the captain, Jordan Staal, was part of the 3 stars of the week from January 6th through the 12th, and he was actually the second star of the week. So who did the captain join? Well, for him himself, he had 5 goals, 2 assists for 7 points in 4 games. You love to see that for the captain, of course. If you look at, if you count, the other part of the week, it was 8 and 4, but in terms of what just last week was with the, the Monday through the Sunday of the Ducks game, now you're talking, 7 and 4, so it's still really good overall for the captain to get the second star. Of course, the third star was Patrick Kane of the Detroit Red Wings. 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points in 3 games played, and then the first star, Connor Hellebuck, 2 wins, 1 goal allowed, a .960 save percentage, and a shutout. Yeah, safe to say it makes sense why Connor Hellebuck might have gotten the first star for the fact that you're talking 2 games, you get a shutout, and you have a save percentage of .960. Yeah, I can definitely see why the Winnipeg Jets are pretty much one of the top 4 teams in the league. Of course, we'll do standings updates later, but yeah, it makes sense for that. Gotta give, Patrick Kane, props too. I mean, you're talking about 6 points in 3 games, 2 points per game, 2 goals, 4 assists. But honestly, though, the captain, when you look at a guy who got 7 points in 4 games, because if you also count the Pittsburgh game, you're talking, it was 8 points in 4. But if you're looking at it from that Monday to the Sunday, that's still really impressive for the fact you're talking 5 goals and 7 points in 4 games. Of course, we all remember the hat trick game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And of course, he scored in the game before against Tampa, and then also scored the following night, against the Vancouver Canucks. So overall, way to have a week to Jordan Staal. Like it's funny how it works out too when you look at he does it on the week where the Hurricanes were ready to honor his brother. He comes in and just does the job, and the fact that you see someone like him getting the second star of the week, because I know a lot of people are always like asking, okay, why is he getting so much money? Why is he the captain? He's not very vocal. He's not really getting a whole lot of points on the board, this, that, or the other. And it's like, well, you hear from what, Rod Brind'Amour always says, it's always he's doing the things off the score sheet, because as long as you're doing your job, that's what really matters. And you don't have to always be on the score sheet. And that's not really Jordan Staal's game. He's not someone who's going to put up 65, 70-point seasons. He's someone who's built himself into being a shutdown forward. Like, if you're talking Selkies, Jordan Staal should already have a couple by now, but, when you're in an era that has Patrice Bergeron, yeah, it's kind of tough to win Selkies, but that's the kind of guy that Jordan Staal is. He's someone who's going to go up against the top lines, shut them down. He'll score some goals. He'll get double digits pretty much almost every year. Points wise, still pretty solid too. So all things considered, I mean, you're asking your captain to be the shutdown third line center with guys like Jordan Martinook or Carrier, or it's Jesper Fast or Niederreiter, and then Andrei Svechnikov sometimes, and Seth Jarvis. Doesn't really matter who's on his line. It's the defense is kind of the big thing, and that's what it was and how it is with Jordan Staal. And that's the one thing that Rod and all the other captains and all the other guys in the locker room talk about. It's his leading by the example. It's him learning all the stuff he learned from his brother Eric, and just setting the culture, setting the tone, and to be rewarded for more than just the defensive side of things and the penalty kill and shutting down the other top team's top guys, winning faceoffs. For him to go off on a week like that, where you're getting 5 goals in 4 games, including a hat trick against the team you grew up watching, it puts into perspective, like, when he has a week like this, it goes to show that he's so dynamic just beyond the score sheet, and that when he does get on the score sheet, it just makes it even better. So I know a lot of people are like, okay, why is he the captain and all this other stuff? And it's because of just all the stuff he does off the ice that don't see. What's going on in the locker room, what's going on at practice, helping the younger guys out. Just being a leader of a team that, you're talking about a guy who's been the captain of the team, for that's gone to 6 playoff, going to the playoffs 6 times, 2 Eastern Conference runs, 3 division titles. I mean, like I said, if it wasn't for Patrice Bergeron, he would have had a couple Selkies by now. It's just how it works out. But, it's good to see he finally gets his flowers when it comes to, having a week where you score 5 goals in 4 games and you're the second star. And the only reason why you're the second star is because the first star had a shutout and a .960 save percentage and a 1 goals against. I mean, yeah, that's pretty tough to beat. But when you're, considered the best forward in the NHL for the week of January 6th to the 12th, that's all that really matters. And then it just goes to show of how good he is when he's, being able to add that dynamic of scoring to his touch. I mean, I don't really know more what you could say about Jordan Staal. It's the fact that he's been there and done that. He's won a cup with the Penguins. He came to Carolina. He's been here for 13 years now. It's just, he's one of the longest tenured Hurricanes, in the last, I want to say, ever since his brother Eric joined the league. You're talking, because you're talking about a guy who surpassed him. He surpassed his own brother, who just got his number retired by the Hurricanes. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at some point, I don't know when, that, we could be maybe seeing an 11 Staal in the rafters just because of what he's meant to the franchise. Yeah, maybe he's not going to have the numbers like Eric had. But the legacy that Jordan Staal has left behind, it says a lot to the fact that he's been here for so long, he's done it for so long, was the alternate captain when his brother was the captain. We had that weird co-captain season with him and Justin Falk, but then came the outright captain when Rod came in, and now you're talking, like I said, multiple division titles, multiple playoff runs, and stuff like that. It's just personal accolades-wise, it's just unfortunate you have a lot of other guys in the league, and, Carolina being Carolina, and fans know it, we always get overlooked, and that's just how it is. We talk about guys when it comes to awards. I mean, Jacob Slavin should have had, 3 Lady Bings in a row, but, it wasn't meant to be, when Kyle Connor of the Jets won it. You're talking about, how Jacob Slavin's not, like, he doesn't really get the respect when it comes to, Norris trophies, because it's now an offensive, basically, award at this point. So you can definitely see where it's like you kind of wish guys got the more accolades of what they've done in the league, but unfortunately underrated. But, when you see a guy like Jordan Staal, who's mainly known for his defense as a forward, comes out and shows out within the points, you just love to see, and you can not be you couldn't be anything other than happy for the captain for the fact that he got a second star of the week in the NHL entirely, but on a week that they're honoring his brother. So really awesome to see from the captain. Big congratulations to him for that. Now, as the Canes as a whole, where are we looking at in terms of the standings? Because we haven't done a standings update in a while. Where are they at in the division? Where are they at in the wild card conference? Whole league in general? Well, if you stick around, we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, we haven't done a standings update for the Hurricanes as a whole when it comes to the division, wild card, conference, and even the league itself, and kind of looking around the league as well, because there's been a lot going on. That's for sure. But starting off with the Metropolitan Division, your Hurricanes as of January 13th going into the 14th, they sit at 44 games played with a 26-15-3 record with 55 points, and they are 5-3-2 in their last 10 at home at Lenovo Center. They are 17-5-1. Of course, the one just came in their most recent game against the Anaheim Ducks. They do have a goal differential of plus 24, which between them, New Jersey, and Washington are the only 3 teams with a plus goal differential. And of course, right now, they are 1 point back in the Jersey Devils with a game in hand. They're at 56, but they have played more than Washington, and Washington is currently 6 points clear of the Hurricanes with a game in hand on them with a plus 43. I mean, who would have thought the Washington Capitals would be leading the division right now and kind of fighting for a President's Trophy at this point? But I mean, who would have thought? I did. I had them kind of predicted finishing way lower, but I guess Washington decided to be one of those teams. But if you look at the rest of the division, of course, the Capitals at 61, the Devils at 56, then you got the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the big surprise, which I'm actually really excited for, because I said coming into the season, I hope this team does really well for all the stuff that's going on in the offseason and just with all they have to deal with. And that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are on a 4-game winning streak. They're 14-5-3 at home, which is very interesting when the fact that you look at their road record, 6-12-3, but they are 3-0 in shootouts, which is crazy. And they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. And they actually have a game in hand on the Hurricanes, but they are 9 points back. So as of right now, even with the game in hand, Columbus is still pretty far back from the Hurricanes in terms of third. So as of right now, the Hurricanes are still sitting fairly well within that, being in third place when it comes to the Metropolitan Division. Then you got Pittsburgh at 44, then Philadelphia at 43, and then it's the Rangers at 42, and then the New York Islanders at 41 points. And of course, the crazy part is the Pittsburgh Penguins have the worst goal differential in the division at a minus 34. And somehow they're 5th in the division. So it's right now, you look at the Metropolitan Division is still very top heavy, despite Columbus having that 20-17-6 record. But if you really look at it in terms of the non-Gary Bettman 500, you're looking at really 20-23, but that's here, there, or there. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of the Metro Division. Now, if you want to look at the overall, for the wild card playoff scenario, of course, it's Washington, the New Jersey, and then the Hurricanes at 55. And then if you look at the Atlantic Division, it's the Maple Leafs at 56, Florida Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning at 53 and 49. Now, in terms of the wild card, the two teams that are holding wild card spots right now are the Boston Bruins at 47 points, and then it's the Columbus Blue Jackets at 46. And the crazy part, too, is when it comes to the Boston Bruins, outside of their 47 points, they have a minus 26 goal differential. The only team that's not in the playoffs right now that have a positive goal differential is the Ottawa Senators at +2, but they have 45 points. So they're really they have a game in hand on the Jackets and 3 in hand on Boston, and they're only 1 point back of Columbus for the second wild card and only 2 back of Boston for the number 1 wild card. So, and in terms of when you look at the Metro, the only team that really has a shot to maybe catching the Hurricanes right now is Columbus, but they're still pretty far back enough to where it's, they might be looking at a wild card, but you're looking at 4 Metro, 4 Atlantic as of right now when it comes to the possible playoff scenario. It's just, who's going to be playing who is the wild card. And right now it would be Washington against Columbus if the playoffs started today in terms of that wild card matchup. Then it'd be Toronto and Boston. I know Toronto wants nothing to do with Boston in the first round. But then, after Columbus, you have Ottawa, Detroit, and Montreal. They're going to take up the next 3 spots. Then it's not until you get to Pittsburgh, Philly, and both New York teams. And then the last place team in the Eastern Conference in terms of at least the wild card stuff is the Buffalo Sabres at 37, which is crazy. I think the Buffalo would be that far down given the fact that a lot of people thought they were going to have a better shot this year. But as of right now, they are the worst Eastern Conference team. If you look at the Western Conference and their wild card in the playoff scenarios is Washington, it's the Vegas Golden Knights, it's that's Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings in the Pacific. Then it's the Jets, Wild, and Stars for the Central, and of course the 2 teams in their wild card spots, the Colorado Avalanche and the Calgary Flames. And right now, the Avalanche are the only team not in the playoff, locked into the top 3 of their division, who has a +9. Everyone else is a negative differential scoring team. Now, for the Hurricanes, when you want to look at the overall Eastern Conference in terms of how are the Hurricanes stacking up to the other 15 teams in the conference? Well, the thing to know is the fact that the Hurricanes they're the 4th best Eastern Conference team right now in terms of points wise. Only teams ahead of them are Washington at 61, then Toronto, and then New Jersey at 56. And the Hurricanes have played the same amount of games as Toronto and does have a game in hand on the Devils. So really, you're looking at a Carolina Hurricanes team who, despite having a road record of 9-10-2 and they're 0-2 in the shootout, they are still within top. They're in the top 5 of the Eastern Conference, but they're within, 1 win away from getting second in the entire East above Toronto and New Jersey. Of course, you have Florida at 53 and then Tampa Bay at 49. So right now the Hurricanes are pretty much, as of right now, well secured in their top 5 spot in the East. Of course, Tampa Bay does have 3 games in hand, and they're only 6 back. So it could change, but the Hurricanes right now are a top 5 Eastern Conference team with a shot of going for top 2 in the entire East. So you got, like I said, you got Florida, Tampa, then it's Boston, Columbus, Ottawa, Detroit, then it's Montreal, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Rangers, Islanders, and then, of course, like I said, it's the Buffalo Sabres bringing up the rear with 37 points. Now, look at the top 5 of the Western Conference. Of course, you got Vegas Golden Knights and the Winnipeg Jets, both tied at 61. Of course, Winnipeg has a +48 goal differential, which is the best in the entire NHL. And it's crazy to think that they're tied with Vegas, and Vegas does have the game in hand on Winnipeg in terms of just looking at the points for the Western Conference. And then, of course, the team that's kind of really also surprised a lot of people, I think is finally, everyone's kind of waiting for, was the Minnesota Wild, and they're at 58 points in 3rd place. And, of course, the team behind them does have a couple games in hand, and that's the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers, both at 42 games and at 55 points. And the round at the top 10 for the West, it's the Kings, Avalanche, Flames, and the Canucks, which is kind of surprising for the Vancouver Canucks of how they did last year. They're the 9th best Western Conference team. But if you want to look at the goal differentials overall, only 7 teams in the West have a positive goal differential, with Colorado being the worst at +9, with the Wild being a +10. Of course, the Jets, like I said, already +48. The Eastern Conference, you have actually 7 teams, so a little bit less in terms of the goal differential. It's about the same in terms of goal differential, but the 7th team is actually sitting in 9th in the entire conference, and that's the Ottawa Senators at +2. They're behind the Boston Bruins, who are a -26, like I said, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are a -2. So even the 7th team of a goal differential in the positives is right now sitting in 9th, but they're only 2 points back of Boston with 3 games in hand. So that could change very, very easily. Now, looking at the overall league, where did the Hurricanes sit as of right now? Well, they are 9th. They're 9th in the entire league. Like I said, at the 55 points, and they're tied with Dallas and Edmonton. But, of course, those teams have 2 games in hand on the Hurricanes because they've only played 42. Carolina's played 44. So in terms of the points percentage, that's why they're kind of higher right now. But honestly, you'll take that if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, when a lot of people thought you were going to have a really drop-back season, that you're the 9th best in the entire league. Of course, the team that's in 10th is the LA Kings, and they've only played 40 games, and they're only 2 points back. So if you really want to look at it, the Hurricanes they're regardless, they're a top 10 team. Even if the Kings do win a game and kind of leapfrog them with the points percentage, you're still talking as the Hurricanes are a top 10 team in the entire league. Now, if you want to look at real quick of the bottom 5 of the league, Chicago Blackhawks dead last with 30. Then it's the San Jose Sharks at 32, Nashville at 33, Buffalo at 37, and then it's the Kraken at 39. And who thought that the Nashville Predators would be a -31 in goal differential and the 3rd worst team in the entire league? Now, if you want to jump up to the other side of the standings and do a really quick who's looking at the President's Trophy right now, Vegas, Washington, and Winnipeg are all tied with 61 points, and the Jets have played 1 more game than the other 2 teams. So right now it's a 3-team race for the President's Trophy, but the Minnesota Wild are only 3 points back, sitting there at number 4, and then it's the Toronto Maple Leafs at 56, along with the New Jersey Devils sitting at 5 and 6. So it's still pretty close for the most part. They're only 5 points back, but the team that's kind of sticking around to the top 3 who are at 61 is the Minnesota Wild. So that's kind of what you're looking at right now in terms of your President's Trophy race of Vegas, Washington, Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Toronto. And also if you want to add in New Jersey as well. So there's a good chance. And Toronto and New Jersey are only 1 point ahead of the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes have either played the same amount as Toronto or has played 1 less than New Jersey. So right now, the Carolina Hurricanes, like I said, you're looking at the conference of 4th, definitely top 5 for sure. And looking at the league, definitely top 10, and they are in 9th. So that's what you're looking at right now in terms of your standings. Yes, I know the Hurricanes have been kind of struggling as of late, outside of these last 7 games where they went 4-2-1 over the last 11 days. But even with that rough stretch in November and December, you're still looking at a team who's top 10 in the entire league, and they are top 5 in the Eastern Conference. So not all is lost. It's no time for the panic button and stuff like that. So either way, it's good to see for the Hurricanes of just how they've been doing overall. But speaking of the team, now let's talk about the roster. And are we going to see a roster update? Because we were only a couple months away from the trade deadline. So where could the Hurricanes potentially might look for an upgrade if they do go for one? Stick around as we'll do that here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Once again, that's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. It's like I said at the end of segment 2, what could we be looking at as possible upgrades for the team? Or could they make an update or roster update if they really wanted to? Because we are, under 2 months away from the trade deadline, which is on March 7th. And of course, it's, January 14th. So like I said, we're, pretty much for the most part under 2 months away from the deadline. And I know a lot of people are kind of curious, what's the Hurricanes going to do? Because, as of late, they have been, in terms of rumored to be in talks with the Vancouver Canucks for Elias Pettersson. My only thing is the fact that he just got a contract that's 8 years, but the annual average value is $11.5 million. Now, from what agent Alan Walsh has said, the cap next year is going to go up to $97 million. And that's coming off where it is now at 88. So you're talking another $9 million bump. Now, with a lot of the contracts coming off the books next year for the Hurricanes in terms like Frederick Anderson, Brent Burns, Dmitry Orlov, and of course the slew of the forwards that we've got in the offseason who only have 1-year deals. Is it possible to get Elias Pettersson? Yes. Is this a in-season move or is this a off-season move where cap space really doesn't matter at that point? Because, they get ready by opening night. If the Hurricanes do make a move for Pettersson, I could see that maybe being a off-season type deal, because my thing is if you trade someone now, even at the deadline or even before it, you're going to have to find a way to either have a third team come in and take some money from the Canucks, some money off of Pettersson's contract, or you have to have the Canucks just eat a good chunk of that money, and then, you have to throw in some sweeteners to make it worth their while. Of course, you also got to get rid of a huge contract going back. It's just who is part of that deal. I know that supposedly Bleacher Report has put out there that Martin Necas might be part of that deal for his 6.5. And of course, he's a free agent after next season, after 25-26. It's very doable. I mean, you're still talking about a $5 million difference between Pettersson's contract and Necas' contract. So you would either have to have the Canucks eat half of 11.5, which mental math is, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, even if you have another team take however much that's going to be, I don't know what third team is going to be willing to take a good chunk of Pettersson's contract unless they get a good amount of sweeteners in place, not just a draft pick. It's going to probably be prospects and draft picks if they're going to be able to take whatever the amount of money that they need to retain, to get Vancouver to send Pettersson to them and then send him to Carolina. If it's just a straight up 2-team trade, like I said, either you got to get the Canucks to eat a good amount of money, and then you're going to have to dump at least a somewhat huge contract. I know it's not like you can throw Kotkaniemi in the deal, because that's not going to be even doable. And there's been a lot of people who are like, oh, let's go get, Nikishin. Let's go get Aho. It's like, well, no. The Hurricanes are not going to give him Nikishin. That dude is a unicorn. You don't see a lot of guys like that very much. And Aho, that's just silly. They're never going to give him up. So in terms of guys that makes a lot of sense to get rid of in terms of a deal, yeah, I can see why a lot of people are going to point to Nietzsche just because of the season, hit the start to his season. It's just, are you the Hurricanes? Do you make that move? I'm not really sure because I know apparently, they've also been in talks with going for JT Miller. Of course, he's got another 5 years left on his contract at $8 million per, and that's 5 seasons after this one. Maybe it's just, he wouldn't be a bad 2C either, because either way, if it's Pedersen or Miller, they're going to be your second line center because they're not going to replace Aho. It's just what trade package works. Do you get an older Miller who could be your second line center, but what's the ask for him? And obviously with the cap going up, you can easily take his $8 million. It's just how are you going to finagle it to the contracts you have now? Because if it still needs just going back or someone else, you're still going to take a huge chunk out of that $8 million to make that work. So it's just, I don't really know. Even if they go for one of those guys, there's going to be some type of contract having to go back to kind of be close enough to that. And then do you get Vancouver to retain some, or do you go find a third team that retains some? Either way, there has to be some retention somewhere, because the Hurricanes don't have an $8 million contract that they're willing just to flip for Miller, unless it's like a guy making 6.5 or 6 and another guy making about 2 or 3 that you can send back, then you're kind of just canceling itself out. But like I said, what's the ask? What's it going to be? I know a lot of people are talking about goaltending. Of course, Frederik Andersen's going to be back very soon. I still don't see the Hurricanes making a goalie move. If they haven't done it by now, and Andersen's going to be back soon, I just don't see that being a move that they're going to be willing to make. Defense, they're pretty much short up on. They just got Shane Gostisbehere back from IR. They just sent Ty Smith back down to Chicago, but you still got Riley Stillman. Just the way the defense is playing this year, I really don't see them making a move on the defense. If there's going to be a move on the defense, that's going to be more so in the offseason with free agency. Nikish's going to come over when they're going to sign him. Maybe they're going to try to go find a sixth defenseman if they don't think Scott Morrow is ready. I can see another free agent coming in to be part of that defensive core that's going to have probably Nikishin, definitely Slavin, along with Chatfield, Walker and Gostisbehere. I think if you're looking at the trade deadline and at overall, it's going to be someone for a forward. Now, are you talking second line center? Are you talking top 6? I know a lot of people don't really want another bottom 4 guy or bottom 6 guy, but I could definitely see the Hurricanes making a depth move, if anything. There's some guys, a lot of people were really love Nikolai Ehlers, but the Jets aren't going to give him up. If you're looking at, bottom of the league teams, like, do you talk to the Blackhawks for Taylor Hall, maybe? Ryan Donato? Taylor Hall would be a bad option, but I've not really seen him linked to Carolina. But, he wouldn't be a bad option. Ryan Donato's been pretty decent for them as well. Do you look at, Granlund of the San Jose Sharks? Are they willing to move him? Even with the struggling Canucks, do you think you can get like a Brock Besser? Brock Besser would be a bad option either if you want to go for a guy who's a top 6. It's just, how's that going to work out? Or do you look at Calgary? Do you look at, is there someone on the Calgary team you want to go after? Do you want to look somewhere like, Anaheim? Is there someone in Anaheim we want to go for? Utah. There's some options, but it's like, what contending team is going to give one of their best players, right now, or even the struggling teams? Like, who are you going to get from a struggling team that's willing to give up, one of their star players? So it'll be very interesting to see how it works out. I know the Hurricanes, like I said, they've been linked to JT Miller. They've been linked to Elias Pettersson. It's just, can you make those contracts work, and what's going to be going back? Because you got to try to make it even as possible. So, I know we're still 2 months away. Not really ready to do a lot of trade deadline discussions, but I think when we kind of get to like the Four Nations break in early February, I think that's where we're going to see a lot more ramp up of like, okay, here's some potential trades. Here's some guys that have been rumored to go to Carolina or that Carolina's been asking for. So as of right now, we're not going to dive a lot into the trade deadline stuff, but it's kind of maybe playing the seed a little bit of like we're a couple months away. Maybe we kind of just maybe put it in our head that okay, maybe it's starting time to like we're getting there to start creeping into what trade options could be there. But I think when we hit the Four Nations break is when it's really going to be full bore of what could trades look like for the Hurricanes if they go make a trade. So definitely wait for that in early February. As that will give me more of like when the trade ramp up starts up. But now it's just kind of like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of a sprinkle of maybe something to think about over the next month or so. So it'll definitely be interesting. That's for sure. So guys, now we're up to Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen. What's Locked On Fantasy Hockey? Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Staal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Even to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also at the Zachary Martin on Blue Sky. I do have link trees in my bios where you can check out all of my articles at the Hockey Writers, or just go to thehockeywriters.com, search my author page at Zach Martin. You can find all of my articles over there. If you want to check out my other podcast, well, it's the Searchcast on all platforms and on YouTube. For this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google, wherever you listen, we're going to be on there. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed this Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.